Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is Angelique Song. I am your presenter and host of the interactive webinar, Seven Ways Poverty Consciousness Impacts You and How to Shift It. This is a taster session for a 10-week online interactive course that I'm going to be teaching and facilitating. And this is the second time that I'm teaching it. And so a little bit about me. I was trained as a tax lawyer working for Deloitte when I just came out of university. And after that, I went into headhunting for 10 years, basically working with two of the top executive search firms, where I was assessing lots of executives for C-suite level roles, so directors, chief executives, etc. So basically, if you look at my background, I have a strong corporate background, but the last 10 years mainly in assessing executives for clients. So as a headhunter, lots of my clients would come to us with basically roles that they had to fill, and most of them were leadership roles, well, all of them. So these leadership roles were roles where people had to come in and basically solve problems where either the existing CEO or the existing director was not performing, or they were actually promoted, or they were basically leaving the company, and the clients were coming to us and asking us to basically go into the market and basically behind the scenes ask other executives whether they wanted to join the company. So when I was doing this for over 10 years, we had to use competency models to actually review and assess and compare and contrast the executives that were going to be presented to the client. So in my headhunter role, I was using competency models, and there are many competencies in the world. But for every role that we had, we would basically agree with the client in advance what type of competencies we would use to assess the directors that we were interviewing. And of course, based on the role, we would determine which competencies were most critical in terms of basically being able to predict success for the executive. So the competencies were mostly based on past behavior and past success and past track records, because our clients, who were basically there to basically, save companies most of the time, they weren't interested in the potential of a person. They were convinced that actually the track record of a person, mainly how they behaved and how they led the companies in the previous positions, were basically big indicators of future success. And so this is how I have been working for over 10 years. But while I was working, I was also studying Jungian depth psychology. So I've been in Jungian analysis since, I think, since 1999. And while I was studying Jungian depth psychology, I was very, very intrigued in energy healing. So I started studying energy healing. And from energy healing, when I graduated from that, I basically discovered that I had been trained also to manifest things. I had no clue, of course, but it was just part of my energy healing. So when I understood that I was trained to be a co-creator, I started reading a lot of the co-creation books. And if you actually want to know more about how I understood that I was actually a co-creator and how I could use the manifestation laws, you should Google my name on Angelique. You should Google my name, Angelique Song, on Google, and you will find a video that is a 30-minute interview about my journey to actually understand the manifestation laws. So basically, that is a very comprehensive overview of how I basically got in touch with the manifestation laws. And after studying relational energy healing with a man called Dean Ranston, I basically fell into the arms of what I call family and organizational constellations. And family and organizational constellations was very critical to me because despite all the knowledge I had about the unconscious of myself and about all the relational energy healing tools that I had to basically heal myself, I found out that actually the systems that I was in, mainly the families, relationships, and the organizations that I was in, were actually really impacting me as well and how I would react in certain situations. And so I felt compelled to actually study family and organizational constellations. And when I finished that, I started to organize events in London. So I've been organizing workshops in London for over 2 or 3 years now with some of my other healer friends that I know. And since March 2011, I've been enrolled into the strategic intervention coaching training led by Anthony Robbins and Chloe Madonna. And so my background is basically a lot of steeped into the unconscious, apart from the individual unconscious, which represents itself in your dreams and in symbols and in the projections that you have. I've also been studying in the relational dynamics of the unconscious and systems. So basically, how does the collective unconscious of a society, a country, a family, or even a company, basically impact the individual? And and apart from that, I have been studying, of course, the more spiritual, esoteric laws of law of attraction, and I just basically this year I started studying the more, I think, rational approaches to changing human behavior, as evidenced by the sixth human needs psychology, as it's now taught by Anthony Robbins and Chloe Madonna. So if you know a little bit about my background now, you'll know that actually when I was studying all these spiritual books, like, Abraham Hicks and Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder, being a headhunter, it was really basically impossible for me not to view the teachings through the eyes of the competencies that I was using on a day-by-day basis. And so while I was really, enjoying reading basically these books and I was teaching it to my clients and my students, I basically couldn't help myself and I started designing basically competency models for how we should actually basically demystify spiritual principles such as law of attraction and how we could use the mind, how we could use our vision, how we could use our feelings, and how we could use identity, for instance. So basically, if you look at these two books, Money and the Law of Attraction and the Dynamic Laws of Prosperity, they are one of the, I don't know, hundreds of books that I've been reading and I've been applying. But specifically, the Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder has had a huge, huge impact on me. And the reason being is that I believe that when I was manifesting, I was still unaware that a lot of my desires and a lot of my desires for a changed, improved circumstance in my life was still coming from the identity of poverty consciousness. Basically, I was still reenacting or coming from a place of unworthiness. I was still coming from a place of the wounded lover. I was still coming from a place of, basically money is bad and it's spiritual, not to ask for too much money, etc. And so the way that I encountered the book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity, is actually through synchronicity. Me and one of my business partners, we were talking about actually organizing a workshop series about money. And I said, oh, I would love to do a spiritual workshop series about spirituality and money. And he said, well, you could read that book. And I read that book. And basically, the Dynamic Laws of Prosperity has really, made a huge, huge shift in me because there were so many blind spots that were revealed to me. And basically, when I was reading that book, I was actually on a holiday with one of the partners that I was dating. And I realized that all of the problems I had with this specific partner were coming from my poverty consciousness. And that instead of focusing on all the abundance and what was good about the relationship, I was basically trained or somehow hypnotized to be focusing on the things that were lacking between us and the relationship. And and being somebody who is all very, very experimental, who doesn't read a book and then doesn't apply it. I actually read books and apply them. I basically started applying the laws of prosperity just after reading this first chapter. And what I noticed was that there was a significant improvement in our relationship, and that basically, we've never had such a good time as when I was on that holiday with him reading that book and applying those principles. And so basically, I can tell you that the dynamic laws of prosperity are not just about money. They're not just about career. They actually, prosperity consciousness and the way it operates, it can basically affect you in all areas of your life. And the way that it has impacted me, maybe I'll be able to share more and more of that, but I can definitely give some examples of how my clients have used it and how it has improved their life. So some of you have done the preparations for this course through the assignments that I send out. And so hopefully you will have been able to fill in some of the assignments, the vibrations that you are feeling in certain areas of your life. And also you've been able to assess whether in certain areas of your life you are coming from poverty consciousness or prosperity consciousness. So let's look at some of the ways, poverty consciousness actually basically manifests itself in your life, whether it is career, whether it is health, or whether it is relationships. It comes up in certain specific ways of your being. So if you find yourself in a continuous struggle and experience, there's probably some kind of poverty consciousness operating in the back. Another manifestation is the recycled, repeated negative patterns in the way that you show up in life. You could also see it as a personal blind spot in your vision. It's like, you just cannot seem to see a different scenario rather than all, the fears and the worries or the track record of failure that you have in that specific area. Another way it manifests is in a loss of undesirable results, regardless of the action you take. There is much more negative emotion than positive emotion in that specific area of your life. And basically, all these combined have, manifested what you probably feel as a track record of failure. If you, for instance, would write a CV about that area of your life, you would look back and probably feel nauseous or probably feel like, geez, I'm such a failure. And that, of course, has impacted your identity. So there's a total lack of confidence in that specific area of life. And in that specific area of life, you actually are trying harder with less results, and sometimes it might even reach the situation where you actually stop taking action. You just don't even want to go there. So unconsciously, there's an obsessive focus on the past, meaning that you don't have a vision of what you actually want. You are more worried about the pain of the past coming back to haunt you. And so that leads to you not taking any risks, and you are in essence stuck with no way out, or you would not be here listening to this seminar on how poverty consciousness is impacting you. So what I'm going to do is actually showing you the model that I designed for my clients that I work with, and how prosperity consciousness operates in 7 ways of being. And so if you are basically understanding how I am approaching this course, basically prosperity consciousness, you can see it as a very esoteric concept, something that is, for books or for, people who believe in airy fairy woo-woo stuff. No, I like things that are practical. When I was studying all the material of Abraham Hicks and Catherine Ponder and Think and Grow Rich, etc., Mike Dooley, all the prosperity, success, and consciousness teachers, and Anthony Robbins, etc., everything that we want to achieve in life is about who we are and how we show up. And so when you want to tune in and be in alignment with prosperity consciousness, the quickest way to your prosperity consciousness is to be in alignment through who you are being. So there are, so I've devised the ways of being in 7 competencies, and all these competencies actually feed back into what I call feast or famine. And so those of you who are basically, making notes, it's actually unnecessary because I'm recording it. So, and I'll be sending it to you, so you can actually basically review this seminar again if you need it. But these 7 ways of being are all things that you can actually control. The problem is, of course, is that all of these 7 ways of being are so programmed in us that we are predestined to actually show up in a certain way, and sometimes it is not constructive at all, and we actually don't even know how to shift it. But basically, while I was studying all these books and I was applying all these teachings in my own life, I saw all the results, also helping clients to apply it into their life, I actually saw that sometimes it is much clearer to distill the teachings from the books into the competencies, and then to actually really pinpoint for each client or each person that I work with where they are stuck. Because actually, if you don't pinpoint it, it's just a huge blur. It's basically, you feel like, oh gosh, I must be doing something wrong. I don't know how to manifest, and these manifestation principles don't work. Of course, there's tons of rationalizations and justifications, but actually, when you demystify the manifestation and prosperity principles and teachings, you will see that actually, when you look at it in terms of competencies, they are not very far from the success principles that successful CEOs and leaders are actually operating by. And I've been interviewing these people for 10 years, so I actually basically gave a presentation called The Spiritual Lessons of the Spiritual Headhunter. And when I was looking at the competencies of successful leaders and basically translating them into spiritual principles, I could actually see that leaders were great manifestors. So imagine that somebody like Steve Jobs or somebody, like Oprah Winfrey, they are just Richard Branson, just name any of them. Why are they so successful? Basically, they intuitively grasp, these competencies of being. And so you could basically actually read a book about successful leaders and probably achieve the same results. Or you could read a book, from a more esoteric, spiritual viewpoint, and it's all about, style and preference. But what I want to do is help you actually use the competencies to actually tap into what I call higher consciousness. So the 7 entry points to shift, we start with identity. Your identity is your I am, and the problem here is that our I am, not just yours, but mine too, is ruled by unconscious archetypes. And these unconscious archetypes, they show up, they are triggered, they are the way that we defend ourselves, they are the way that we think we should be to actually survive or to actually be successful. But sometimes these unconscious archetypes, when we don't understand their worldview, the way they stop us, they're not very helpful. So one of the first entry points is identity. The second entry point, which is something that is being taught in all the manifestation principles, is desire. The stronger your desire, the more there is an impulse for you to actually, draw in the magnetic forces of the universe to help you attract what you want in life. But most of the time when we have undesirable results, what we have is a focus or a split desire. And a focused desire is something that, of course, is much easier to pursue than a split desire, because a split desire means that you have split intentions. And split intentions, again, go back to identity, meaning that your split intentions is supported by several sub-personalities in you that are fighting, to actually protect you. So, for instance, let's say you have a desire to create an amazing relationship. So one part of you wants an amazing relationship and goes, let's say, on a dating website. And on the other hand, You have another subpersonality in you that would do anything to protect you from ever being abandoned, betrayed, or lied to again. So again, here you have immediately the example of how a split desire and how the split identities behind it are operating in your unconscious. And in our course, you will be able to pinpoint which archetypes are ruling your life and how you can help them basically transform so that you can heal those wounds and so that you can move on to who you really are or more of who you really are. So emotions is, I think, the most important entry point for the seminar, because whereas on all the other, entry points, you can actually delude yourself. For instance, you can say, I have such a constructive belief system. I take so much action. I'm working so hard. Actually, your emotions are the most reliable an indication of where you are, because your emotions are the vibes that you send out into the world and which attracts what you want. So basically, for anything that you want to create, it is very important that you're very aware of the emotions that it brings into your life. So, for example, if you are making a vision board for 2012 or for whatever project, and you are very, you look at the vision board and you actually feel nauseous or unsure, or you feel your stomach churning, which is actually something that has happened to me, I can tell you. So if that is happening, then that is a huge indication that that vision board is actually going to trigger, it's actually helping remind you that there is something unresolved there that you need to look at. So this is how we're going to use emotion. We are not going to numb emotions. We're going to put the spotlight on the emotions and help them guide you to how you can actually use emotions to show you where you are in terms of alignment or misalignment. So the fourth entry point, or the fourth competency, is vision. And vision is about whether you are unconsciously focused on problems or on opportunities or solutions. And so that is, of course, very, very important. And I believe it was Tony Robbins in one of his books that said, very successful people, when they focus on things, 10% is on problems, 90% is on solutions. So, and of course, if only it was that easy, we would be there already. But of course, vision operates in a certain way. So I'm gonna, take you through how you can actually enhance your vision so that it can actually work for you. So belief, of course, that is a huge minefield, because we have so many beliefs and worldviews. And but if your worldview is not supporting you in achieving what you want, or it is unconsciously so in contrast to what you want to create, then of course, this is again something that you need to review. And of course, if we believe that, there are several archetypes that could be operating in your psyche at the same time. For instance, the archetype that wants you to have a relationship, let's say the inspired lover, but you also have one that is totally wounded, the wounded lover. The worldviews of the wounded lover and the inspired lover are going to be in conflict with each other. So that is another area where you have to resolve alignment, or you have to come to a point of alignment. And another entry point of basically a competency is looking at the way how you take action. Are you always struggling when you're taking action? Are you always, taking action out of fear? Or actually, are you surrendering yourself to the flow? And there are many, many, teachings that actually help you to really understand what the difference is between the two. And the seventh one is the most difficult one, I would say, because the art of allowing, that's actually what it's all about. And the art of allowing is basically lining up all these six ways of being so that you are a total vibrational match with what you want to attract. Whether that is a amazing career, whether that is, a full practice with amazing clients, or whether that is, your perfect body, it is all about lining up these six ways of being so that you can allow in what you want in your life. So we'll take you through all these seven entry points. So having basically explained to you what these 7 entry points are, you could actually visually see it as almost like a pyramid, where you can see, identity and your desire, the actions you take, the vision you have, and the belief you have, as the foundation of actually manifesting the experience and receiving that experience into your reality. And basically, it is about really being clear that when, for instance, your identity here is out of whack with what you want to experience, then you lack the foundation. You don't have the solid foundation to actually be a vibrational match to what you want to create. So the law of attraction is all about being a vibrational match, and being a vibrational match is actually getting into the vibrational state of actually experiencing that what you want to create even before it shows up. And so a lot of what we are going to walk you through is actually about this vibrational alignment and being a vibrational match. And so if you see the law of attraction almost as a copy machine of what you are offering to the universe, then you can imagine that when you have a split identity, you have all these unconscious archetypes operating in your life, basically protecting you from actually what you truly want to have, etc., then you are missing the foundation, and this pyramid is not going to be solid. It will just not be there. So keeping this pyramid in mind will help you understand that these competencies are actually building blocks. They're building stones. They're really important to actually line you up with your life experience that you want to create. So some of you have probably been filling in the assignment, and if you can see